My name is Gopal Krishna Anand, Associate Editor of OEM Update magazine, and I welcome you all to the OEM magazine's interactive session, Welcome Hyperautomation. My colleague Darshana, editorial, OEM Update magazine, will introduce the panelists and tell you more about the interactive session. I
Thank,
welcome Ms. Darshana to take over and moderate the session.
thank you, Mr. Gopal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to OEM Update interactive session on Welcome Hyperautomation. Technology is developing, and every sector strives to update itself with evolving technology. Hyperautomation is a means for fundamental digital transformation. It eliminates human involvement in low-value processes. There is rapid acceptance of technology across numerous business verticals. It can become a key factor for organizations adapting to change processes. Hyperautomation will be one of the technological trends that will have an impact in the coming years. It increases the automation of business processes such as production chains, workflows, marketing processes, etc. By introducing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotic process automation. RPA plus AI and IoT will enable customers to go for automation that will innovate the style of working. The global hyperautomation market is booming due to the high adoption of advanced combined technologies such as predictive analytics and AI by various industries verticals to improve their operational efficiency. It's an honor and privilege to introduce you to today's distinguished speakers. Mr. Anup Wadhwa, Director of Automation Industry Association, Mr. Raj Shekhar Uchil, Senior Member of International Society of Automation, Mr. Rohit Sadapal, Senior Manager of Digital Transformation and Experience Management at Tata Motors.
It is a question is there from Sukumaran Mathur. So he says, can we know the actions by AIA on industry to reduce the skill gap between academia and industry to adapt the new technologies in manufacturing industries, considering the fast changes happening in technology, whether industry enhancing the training programs for new recruits? Mr. Anup Wadhwa, it is directed at you.
So I think very relevant question. I would have loved to know where Mr. Sukumaram is working, so I could probably give a more pointed reply. But we have been talking about academia and industry cooperation for almost 2-3 decades. The challenge has been again that it's industry wants the academia to develop people as per it needs, and the academia wants industry to set up labs. That has worked to some extent. But as I said, the challenge and the speed at which we want to go is so fast that the two need to virtually merge. In the Foundation for Smart Manufacturing, which even though it is located at IIT Delhi, it is completely kept autonomous. It is not part of the academic or the administrative department of IIT. It is like a startup where people from industry and the professors go there and run it like a startup culture. The difference here is that the lab equipment which we have is completely industry grade. So we've had industrial partners come in, and you can see robotics, you can see cobots, you can see machine vision, you can have machine learning, you can see OPC UA, you can see the AR, you can see VR, you can see digital twin. All these things are being done on tools which would be good enough for a company like Tata Motors to deploy right away. The beauty is we've been able to hire young and fresh engineers, and within first 12 months, many of them are quite conversant with both the IoT, the IIoT, and the AR and the PLC. I think that's a pretty solid combination for people to have. Your next question is whether industry is enhancing the training programs for new recruits. I cannot name companies, but like Tata Motors, an equally competent industry house has come to us, and we are designing some collaborative training programs. As I'm speaking to you, I have a major defense equipment manufacturing public sector unit where over a dozen of their senior managers are doing laboratory work, having done the theory work over online. And we have also created a template for a final immersion program in which a company will come with its desired SOPs, and we will give them the tools which are world-class tools, and they will use that to deploy and see, is it a challenge they want to solve through machine learning, or is it a challenge which right now needs to be done only with putting some discipline on the process or with empowering the human operator, etc. So there are choices we need to make. As I said, I still believe that ultimately it's the human which will use the tool. So to the degree he himself desires automated software to take over, it's not going to work. The responsibility will ultimately, if there is a fire, you cannot blame an IBM computer for the fire. You will have to blame some human being. Similarly, if there is a threat of cybersecurity, if you don't have strong systems, it'll be foolish for you to put everything up into the cloud. You need to have a sensible approach. What are you going to do at the premise level? Where are you going to put your edge analytics, etc.? So all that requires learning work. It's not a straightforward thing. Yeah, the training programs are done in different levels: awareness, then hands-on, and then final immersion, and then you can become an expert.
Anup, there is one more question from Mr. Sanjay Shah. He asks, many customers are reluctant to invest in IIoT solutions that we are offering. And he asks, how will they get ROI on the investments and how to convince such customers?
So this is a $1 million question, the chicken comes before the hen or what? What we have done, and it's a very timely seminar. Only yesterday, we have released a public notice that if there is manufacturing company, small and medium enterprise. Now, I don't need to convince Tata Motors. They have the full team. They have access to all the vendors also, all the consultants. If we can show this investment in an IIoT solution in a small and medium enterprise, then they become the ambassadors for speaking the truth. You see, as technologists, sometimes we oversell. But if there is an adopter and he has found a solution which is giving him operational benefits, once that operational benefit is tied in with his customer satisfaction or customer need, he has to get an ROI. There is no doubt about it. So to convince such people, I am willing to subsidize 5 projects, not the full amount, but yes, reasonable few lakhs, not as cash subsidy, but as service subsidy. So consulting, software development, cloud license, installation guidance, etc., we can all give. All they need to invest is in the sensors which are required. And by this, I also hope to create an ecosystem of a consultant. There are many people who said they are retired, they are available as consultants. There are small system integrators. They can do the programming and the wiring and the cabinet making, etc. But there is nothing like proof of the pudding is in the eating. And therefore, to the degree that we need to seed this, we are willing to put our technical resources, our facilities, as well as we are willing to, lower the cost of ownership. Once that is done, I think we'll have real use cases, and the ROI is very, very obvious if you are satisfying your customer need.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anup, for highlighting that technical investment is very necessary. What are your views, Mr. Rajshekhar, about the investment in IIoT solutions?
Let's say a very simple example. A customer was using one of our instruments, a major automotive company out in Gujarat. The only thing is now it was all manual reading. And then he said, my end customer is not accepting the fact that you're just going to, see a value in the meter and write it in the book and all that. So can you automate it? When we worked on this, then they said, okay, can we also do the SAP interface? Can we do an RFID reading? And over that customer has now been using our system for almost a year, where he just interfaced all this. So the question is not just the direct cost, but the ease of operation. And as I said, the track and trace, All that now comes in as part of the IIoT. So it's not just taken in isolation. Yes, there are a lot of articles globally on I4 and it says, show me the money. But yes, it is like, automation on a CNC machine versus a lathe. You cannot get money immediately. But you know that the quality of output, the quality of rejection, the traceability, the operator consistency, all that comes when you have automated the process. I mean, I gave it in a very simplistic view. But then what is done? You have a powerful PLC and drives and all in a CNC compared to an old lathe. But what did it achieve? A much better control on the end process, the tracking of the end process, the documentation, the safety procedures. So your end of life, at the end of the day, you have a better product. So IIoT also is the fact that it's not just investment in technology, it's the fact that your output, your traceability. You talk of ISO 9000 and track and trace. It's definitely much easier to do this when everything is interfaced and documented. No human intervention, no question of someone saying I couldn't read your handwriting or I couldn't make out, the operator was not there. Everywhere when we look at the fact that you can't have a man sitting there and saying, this item is good or this item is bad. So everywhere, today an automotive company can no longer trust a man to sit and say, no, my car sounds good. You have automation and you have AI ML, which goes along with that to say, yes, my car sounds good, my bike sounds good. I was with one of the major tire manufacturers, and they are using AI and ML to know the quality of the sound of the tire. So build a database. So all these are technologies which, like IIoT, I would say that these are all technologies which come into place. At the same time, when I talked of technologies like cybersecurity, which is important when IIoT is there, you are also talking of a plant, a fatality prevention when you go into that. Your old systems were interfaced here and there with no regard to cybersecurity. With the new standards, you consider that. You don't want someone hacking into your plant and shutting it down. So it goes together.
Thank you, Mr. Rajshekhar. Quality output is quite necessary. What are your comments about it, Mr. Rohit?
See, when it comes to realizing the ROI, basically from IoT digital transformation project, the approach what we carry over here at TML Tata Motors is like we include it's a conglomeration of design thinking, lean, and agile thing. So we calculate the values, what in terms of the business benefits, and moreover, what we feel is like at times what happens is the users, they are not able to sometimes envisage about what would be the end value out of the process and everything. I think we are at that stage. So that not everyone understands why a digital transformation is required in this area or not, even after we put up a transformation project. So value realization is something which is very difficult to account for things. But here we have an example not from the IoT side, but consumer IoT. If we take example about the UPI and other apps interface, like even for that matter, the grocery apps or the mobility apps or something, the value that they carry is like how they put up the user interface and user experience. And building on the UI UX, they are able to get greater value out of it, and that's how they get the ROI. So for us, similar is the case. I explained about two areas, means like purposely in the slide I put design thinking. So design thinking and agile processes. So if they are rightly in place, and even if your users are not aware of like what value they are going to get, and they just believe you because you are doing the process empathetically, you have your trust built in. So they will give it for you. And when it comes to the ROI, so like I mentioned that hyper automation is that golden basket. People, it's not hyper automation is not like it's the peak RPA kind of a thing, not to be taken into exact definition that hype means like on the peak of RPA, but it speaks more than that thing. It speaks about monetizing the data which is available to you, monetizing the value basically that you are already getting from the IoT and digital platform, and further going ahead and lessening the gap for the earlier realization of ROI. So that's how we can understand about like how best we can get the earlier ROI and how do we tackle the ROI question in this regard.
Thank you, Mr. Rohit. Monetizing the data is very important. There is one more question from Mr. Mukund Puranik. He's asking, apart from automation, how come China is able to building of 52 stories in just 19 days with total completion of plumbing, electrification, whereas we can hardly build a room in 19 days. So how automation techniques will help us in such areas?
I would like to take on this because I have done a similar exercise on it. So it's the way people present it. It's not the 19 days actually, because it's like when do we deliver the vehicle? So we deliver the vehicle in 1 day, or we deliver the vehicle in 2 days. It's not about that thing. If you have to account for the entire thing, I have to count from the way it was made. So what happens in the precast industry? Actually, they are using a lot of automation tools in terms of planning and other things. Software interventions are there, like product lifecycle management and everything. But when you talk about a building in 19 days, is not a 19 days. 19 days are purely the assembly of the things. Part of production and everything that takes a lot of time. It's like it's the 80% of their time goes into the factory only. So that's where the entire nut, bolt, and everything is produced. It's just the approach of a planning thing, which is built into a life cycle and software. So wherein life cycle analysis of the entire building and the connections to be done and everything. So that's where the entire data goes in. And when they decide on a particular day that they would like to build, and they build it. So with the ready available of everything, they'll build in 19 days. So that's how China has been doing. But the hype is like 19 days they have built the building. So there are much better technologies now with the help of 3D printing and everything. So there are advancement to additive manufacturing as well. So it will make the shorter lifespan for this case. So automation in building industry could be 3D printing.
Thank you, Mr. Rohit, for highlighting the point. Oh, what are your views about it, Mr. Anu? We are making a building in 19 days and we are making...
See, I think this China syndrome is quite a bother for many Indians. Even now, let's come more to manufacturing. The EV industry is being flooded by imports from China. So China has taken a lead. The only lesson I think we need to learn from China is that when they apply their mind as a nation, and then they go whole hog. We are somewhere all rounders. We are caught in many things. Our human philosophy is different. Our democracy is very dear to us. So we have to have our priorities different. Making a multi-storied building completely in prefab or additive, and then having to assemble it in 19 days may still not deliver us the goods because the connecting road and sewage system will not be there, right? The MCD, the corporation, would not have had the ground rules for how this whole habitat is going to come. But one learning we can apply in whichever area we are working is on system thinking and system engineering and system integration. If anybody can conceive the whole picture, then he can start breaking it down. Then the documentation will start, then the CAD, CAM, all that thing will start taking. So I think this is something which is not even taught in our colleges. But in the higher value addition, if we want to leapfrog, we want to reduce the gap, we will have to stop thinking in terms of compartments, and we'll have to have many, many people who can think completely and then dive deeper into each subsystem and be fully clear. And clarity in communication, if you look at the German way of thinking, I've not worked with the Chinese, but if you look at the way the Germans work, they will not take any action unless it is first there on the drawing. But in India, we get a phone call and we start jumping into action, right? Somebody says, go change this wire. If he's a boss, we'll just go and do it. In the German way, no. First, it has to get transferred on a piece of paper. Somebody has to sign it, take responsibility, then it will go. So it's a way of working and thinking. And I think that's going a little beyond the subject, but very, very interesting for us to think of what our priorities are.
Definitely. Mr. Rajshekhar, you have something to add to this point?
There are two ways that we look at it. One is, of course, as Mr. Rohit said, the work which has gone before, and what you see outside is the building constructed, in 15 days, 20 days. But the amount of pre-work which has gone on the 3D printing or the clearances and everything. So we don't see all that. We just say, okay, he brought the building and it's ready in 15 days. But then you also know, I was in Shanghai some years back. They showed us a place which was like Dharavi. And they said the Chinese government decided that would be an IT park. And 1 year later, it becomes an IT park. We know how, certain systems work in China. You can't do that in India. That's the political side, the democracy and the communist route. At the same time, yes, working with suppliers like Bosch almost for the last 20 years, the comment from Bosch was ISO should learn from us. We know we have far better quality technologies than what ISO developed. And as you said today, when we adopted ISO, then you said, and that is a very nice point which Mr. Anup Wadhwa made, that, in the control panel, when you go there, the initial thing was, okay, nahi chal raha, ye wire dalo. And there is no documentation on who put the wire, why the wire was put, nothing. So what was given, what was installed, and what was finally commissioned, you have three separate drawings. And this changed once the ISO 9000 philosophies and all came of documentation, changing, engineering, change management, and all that. And there are companies, US and German companies, which are so particular. I have gone to US companies here which are in machine tools, and even for just installing a small drive, which many of the other local people will just take out a screwdriver from the pocket and cut the wire and do it. There are machine tool companies in Bangalore where the technician comes with a full toolkit and he says, our factory, the rules are very clear. The wire has to be cut, the joints have to be put, the marking has to be done, and therefore your question of your final quality goes there. But then, we don't see that, and someone will say, no, this fellow finished the wiring in 2 days. You also have to see what went behind that. So you are, yes, you can't, today the automotive industry, and Mr. Rohit will bear me out, the rate of production in an automotive industry today over the last, 30, 40 years has changed drastically. Could you imagine if you say that, you have 25 cars or 30 cars a day, or, much higher than that? No one could imagine 40 years back if you say a company like Airbus today is talking of 2 planes a day, which is incredible. But that's the sort of, systems that they evolved in terms of suppliers and everything. And they are aiming for that. You could not imagine that a company like Airbus, which earlier was talking of 4 airplanes or 5 airplanes in a year, is now talking of 2 airplanes in a month. So the technologies and the systems in place, got you that. An example is today, even the LCA production in Bangalore, where they are talking of saying that where we were talking of, 1 aeroplane a month, they are talking of 2 and 3. They are saying now the complete ecosystem is in place, the designs are in place, all the QA is in control, so we can do that. So the Chinese systems also, we know that in many cases are in place fully, so you can construct a building.
Definitely, Mr. Rajshekhar.
It looks at both sides of the coin also.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekhar. It's all about speeding up the things. Coming to Mr. Anup, will industrial 5G provide connectivity as the backbone to enable digital transformation in the manufacturing industry?
So we are just going to start some pilots in that. TCS is one of the companies which is interested in looking in that. Yes, there'll be certain processes, especially, we are talking about many things. Yesterday we were discussing with this company, and we were looking at whether video surveillance can do an overarching error check of some things being left behind, etc. The more you start having data guzzlers, you will need to have high speed of communication within a premise also. So there will have to be sensible use cases. What I'm saying is technologies are available, but sometimes as technologists, we get overexcited and we want to push that as a solution. Technology is not the solution. The solution is the use case. And every use case will demand an appropriate action. All we need to recognize is that the sensitivity of designer and sensitivity of the product manufacturer, the control industry, and our industry is fully alive to it. Today, the new generation of PLCs which are coming are having an inbuilt, network gateway kind of a thing. So you don't have to have extra stuff. So with rapid growth of electronics, with rapid growth of computing power, digitalization, software, the components are becoming more and more smarter. I'm again saying the people need to catch up and be smarter than the availability of the hardware components or the software.
Indeed, Mr. Anup. 5G and technologies will ease digital related aspects. Mr. Rajshekhar, how do you look at industrial 5G connectivity?
Today, I will just give an example. When we were putting, and we did this, let's say a noise monitoring system today for the cities, which is mandatory as per pollution control law. So when we were doing this exercise, about 5-6 years back in Delhi, at that time, 3G was the most common technology, and 4G was just, hovering around. Today, you can, literally pick up a 4G modem and maybe in a few months pick up a 5G modem and connect to the instrument. Yes. Now, how fast can my instrument send the data out, and two, how fast can the computer which takes this data interpret it is also the important. Obviously, the other things that I said, the wireless standards, the cyber security and all that. So 5G or 3G or 4G is just a technology. The question is, does your process demand it? Two, how much, and this is what someone else asked, how much is the ROI if I get more speed? In certain places, yes. Let us see in a process control thermocouple, how fast does a thermocouple change? A thermocouple response time is in seconds. What did it matter whether the signal went out in 3G or 4G or 5G? From a what do you say, Mr. Anup? From the sheer process control viewpoint, the communication from the PLC to the main computer, yes, 4G, 5G. But your basic process parameters don't change. The process parameter is not going to, run at gigabit speed. So the question is understanding where this technology comes in. How does it help you? Yes, if I want a visual manual where I can give to a crane operator where, on his mobile, he can see exactly with the new technologies of AR, VR and 5G, where something has to be, fixed in terms of mechanical or electronics, then yes, there it's much easier. There is where the technology comes into being. So the enabler is all this. Your internet was an enabler. When you had LAN and wireless, it became an enabler. Your laptop became an enabler. It doesn't mean that technology, that before that with the computer, it was not running. But now instead of taking a huge, a 10 kilo computer, you could take a laptop and connect it. But the principle of communication or what you are reading has not changed. But your ease of operation has changed. So maybe in the same way that 4G and 5G, where you require large data and large speeds, yes, 5G comes into picture. And then of course, you're processing data. Can you process data at that speed? I can get everything inside in the 5G. Are my processors and my software capable of interpreting and analyzing this data at the speed? So that's what it is. But yes, all these technologies evolve. Japan is already talking of 6G. We are talking of Industry 5 in India. While today the question on the panel is whether Industry 4 itself is giving, ROI. So the question is, these are all tools, and it's not something that you can say today or tomorrow how important or how good it is till it gets implemented, especially in the Indian scenario.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, most of the applications or the problem areas actually evolve or revolve around the three dimensions of what constitutes an OEE, which is availability, performance, and quality. I think Indian industry has a long way to go in all these three aspects. And because people are not measuring it, they don't actually know at what level they are. You'll be surprised if you take a survey, most of the machines, not talking of a line of Tata Motors, but I think going into the smaller companies, most of the average OEE will be about 50%. I mean, if you've got to multiply 80% into 80% into 80%, you are at 50 or below 50%. Now, if there has to be transparency and skilling and data which is helping to improve the OEE, you're automatically going to get an ROI. It's like a taxi. You are running it for 6 hours. Instead of that, you can now run it for 8 hours. You're going to get more income. So similarly, if you have a mother machine, it could be a CNC turning machine or a grinding machine or a weld machine or a furnace. If your OE parameters are up even by 3, 4, 5%, you have to get a return on investment. The challenge is to tackle the basics first, come up to a level, where you are operating at about 90%. That's where the going gets tough. It's similar to the quality journey, from 1 Sigma to 2 Sigma, pretty easy. But when you want to go up to 6 Sigma, you've got to be an out of ordinary person. Yeah, you've got to be completely passionate. Quality doesn't come just like that. You've got to have that, higher consciousness to get everything right first time. Those are the areas where then this entire 5G and, data crunching and AI and ML, all those things become handy there. So for predictive maintenance, you can have ML, but if your basic breakdown maintenance is taking 6 hours, first try and do that in 3 hours instead of 6 hours.
Mr. Rajshekhar, would you like to comment on this?
Now, in the discrete industry, that's possible because you could have the FMS approach, where you have flexible cells and doing it. You may not be able to do it in a process plant like a Reliance or a power plant, because everything is continuous. There's no isolation. Once the raw material goes into a steel plant and it comes out as a final steel. So the entire system, the entire process chain is in one line. You can't break it up. Your automation will improve the quality, will improve the process, will improve the reporting time. But you cannot change the process per se. You can't generator generates electricity. You can't remove the electricity and put it back like in a flexible cell.
Correct. Not in process industries.
Yes. So in the discrete industry, that's possible.
Okay.
So we have to look at whether it's a discrete, whether it's a process, whether it's a hybrid.
Correct, Mr. Rajshekhar. So, Mr. Rajshekhar, another thing is, how can hyper automation help mechanize things like order management, transportation, warehousing, inventory, etc.?
Okay, I would not really be an expert in that. Possibly Mr. Rohit, from a plant viewpoint, to give a much better idea of how it works.
The glitch, has Estelle explained why we need a 5G. So so that's the reason modern day manufacturing is like based on various devices working together. Like bulk of data creation happens every day. And this, of course, the increased collection of data has to be transmitted and analyzed at a faster level. Because if the company has to get competitive, it has to have tap on its data and insights. And with the 5G's foray, low latency can be coupled with its high bandwidth capacity. So that's how data can be helped. Next was the increase in automation with regards to 5G, and to take example of paint shop. So like most of the shops employ today's day robots. So they are collaborative robots, cobots, to complete tasks right from the quality, from identification, everything. Now earlier we had a problem in this case because the data latency, the low latency was a case with the 4G. But 5G is able to solve that now. So now, for an example, if an auto manufacturing industry which already uses the robots, cobots or something to complete tasks for qualitative areas, even for paint shops where the tight specifications are there, so which are not suited for human. So basically in paint shop, so there we can put up a cobot. We can guide the cobot with the help of data, and also not just guide the cobot at real time with the help of a cyber physical system, but also at real time we can get the data, and even we can automate the anomaly detection at real time and automate the correction for itself. So this is possible with the help of 5G. We missed on two areas. Of course, Mr. Anup and Mr. Rajshekhar had touched best on the augmented reality and use of drones. So now, when it comes to augmented reality, so companies have started using augmented reality right now in skill development and other features. But as and when the time goes, if people have to do with the remote maintenance, so augmented reality will be vastly used. And that's where 5G will be of great aid to do remote maintenance with the help of augmented reality. Next is use of drones. Basically, so drones have been deregularized by now the government of India. So now we are free to use the drones within the specific limits with the guidance. So drones can be extensively used to monitor the thing, to capture with the vision-based analytics what are the anomalies happening in and around the area, and also provide insights about the factory. So in all of these use cases, so 5G is going to play a greater role. That's how where 3G and 4G had the limitations. So now with the help of the incremental improvements, with the help of 5G, the speed and bandwidth will be greater. So that's how 5G is going to add a new value to implementation of these cases.
Certainly, Mr. Rohit.
Yeah.
Those 5G and hyper automation implementation would possibly restructure the workflow.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Anup, how do you look at mechanizing process with AI and hyper automation?
Mechanization is the first step when you're replacing human activity. And then when you have mechanization, then the logical thing is to go in for that automation. When you have automation, then the next step is then to start looking at its connection with the rest of the system, and that creates the digital interface. So, as I said, hyper automation basically is saying where you have clearly understood there is a need to automate, you should automate, because you have mastered the process, it is foolproof, it is repetitive. So to make it reliable and to make it, foolproof from the point that, different people are coming with different skill and are breaking the rules, you tend to automate it. But we are not able to reach that level of clarity, then you need to step back and say, okay, whether it is lack of clarity or the fact that there are some processes which are done better by human, like assembly of a electrical panel. Human beings today are the best people to do it. You might have better connectors. You can use, of course, even AR to guide you as to where you should insert the pin, etc. But you can't have a cobot doing that, because the access and all requires finger movements. It requires sense of many other things. And you do have people who are electricians and they need jobs. So in certain areas, you will not automate everything. But definitely the route to automation requires one, I would say, quality, which is discipline. As I said, a simple thing, if you know what needs to be done, you should be able to put it down either as a 2D drawing or as a 3D, so that you can pass on that knowledge to others. I think that's something we have to evolve, that what we are doing is not just for today, but is also going to have a better tomorrow for the organization, for the people who work with us.
Definitely, Mr. Anu. We have to keep on learning with the emerging situations. Now we are reaching the end of session, gentlemen. May I request Mr. Rajshekhar Ushil to give closing remarks, please?
This was really a fascinating session because we had people from 3 different domains, talking. Mr. Anup Wadhwa comes with years of experience, and today with his partnership with IIT Delhi is able to bring a lot of what was earlier on paper to the industry. I have been a supplier for many years, while we have Mr. Rohit from Tata Motors who gives you an end user perspective. So I think this sort of really gives a lot of knowledge to the users. I hope that our discussions has helped the user community of more than 30 people and the others on Facebook. I think I congratulate Mr. Gopal Krishna and his team of OEM for this fantastic initiative. I believe such practices would go a long way of in bringing all this knowledge to the common man. You have someone like who spoke just now from Godrej, so it's a fantastic thing. Godrej is one of the most well-known manufacturing companies, and you had someone there who spoke of his knowledge on Godrej and how he could change. Mr. Sukumar comes with years of experience. I know him personally, so I think this is a great platform.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Now I request Ms. Darshana to close the session, please.
Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's Welcome Hyperautomation. We hope you enjoyed the session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Anup Wadhwa, Mr. Rohit Sadapal, and Mr. Rajshekhar Uchil. I would also like to thank Mr. Gopal Anand and Mr. Prasad Nair for taking this initiative. We request our delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media platforms. OEM Update is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also download our app from Google Play or App Store. With this, we want to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.